Woody Page. Wild Card Weekend, the win game rematch. The biggest favorite and underdog in Wild Card history, and a team you know nothing about. They never get talked about. The Dallas Cowboys. Anything is possible in Wild Card Weekend. Let's go. Look at this panel. This is the panel. As long as I give them enough time to pontificate, this is the panel. Here's the schedule, Woody Page. Look at the schedule.
I already have.
I know you have. Every playoff matchup this weekend is a rematch of a game or games earlier this season, except for Cowboys 49ers. We'll start there. I'll bet I can tell you this game could have any result, and you wouldn't be surprised. If I said Cowboys 50-10, number one offense rolls, you'd be like, yeah, okay, sure, I see that. If I said 49ers 23, Cowboys 6, San Fran throws 3 passes, 4 Cowboys turnovers, you'd be like, yeah, I see that too. So, national panel, I ask you this question. What do you know? What do you think you know? What's the number one thing that will decide this game around the horn, Justin Tinsley?
The number one thing that will decide this game is me stress eating starting today. As soon as we finish filming this show, I would like to plead the fifth.
Our resident Cowboys fan, yes, please.
Yes, the game is like this. Deebo Samuel leads the league in yards after catch. Dallas gives up the second most. Jimmy Garoppolo is 7-0 when he doesn't throw a pick. So for all the talk about this Dallas offense, this is all about which Dallas defense shows up. We know which San Francisco defense is going to show up. They've been one of the better defenses in the league for the last half of the season. So if Parsons and company can get pressure on Garoppolo and Diggs can be Diggs, that opens up the game and the playbook for Dak and that monster offense. Now, if you excuse me, I need to go get my menu for this week.
All right. I mean, please, ease into the weekend. Sarah Spain, how about you?
Yeah. You summed it up off the top, so I guess knowing that it could go either of those ways, we have to presume each team at their best, and then how does it look? And for me, Justin just hinted at it. The Niners are 8-1 with 1 turnover or fewer. They're 2-6 if they have 2 or more. And we know that the Cowboys have forced 2 or more turnovers in 12 games this season, which is the most in a long time. So it does come down to that defense. But it's also worth noting that this defense is not well suited to a great run offense on the 49ers side. So if they can get ahead early, if they can control the clock and the time, they're in a really good position to not force Jimmy to make the plays that will result in those turnovers. So first and most important is for them to establish the run early and get ahead so they're not chasing.
Woody Page, you've heard about the turnover battle. You heard about Dallas's defense. What's the number one thing in this game to you?
I found it funny that you asked one thing to Justin and he gave you like 8 different things.
He's stressed right now. He's a Cowboy fan. He should be.
His diet.
He should be.
Yeah. Well, come on. What is that all about? I'm going to give you Garoppolo. And it's already been somewhat mentioned, but Justin, you left out the other side of that argument. You said he's 7-0 when he doesn't throw an interception. He's 2-6 when he does. However, he is 68% completion when he throws over the middle. And that hasn't happened, that number, in the last 15 years in the NFL. So if he is successful, doesn't throw interceptions, throws successfully over the middle, and can continue to utilize the running game they have, and they rush for 150 yards, that's a success sort of rate that can beat the Cowboys. However, if you do a deeper Diggs, you've got a guy that's had 11 interceptions.
Yes, I hear you there. Now, he is a feast or famine type defensive back. He does a lot of great things, and then there's times when he's nowhere near where he should be. June Lee, I'll bring you in here. I've heard Garoppolo. I've heard turnover battle. I've heard Dallas's defense. For you, what's the number one thing that decides this game?
Well, I think it's the matchup between Diggs and Garoppolo. I mean, we've talked so much about how much Jimmy G's turnover rate affects the outcome of a lot of these 49ers games. And on top of all of that, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that thumb injury that Jimmy has is going to affect how he plays on the field over the course of this year, because this has really big implications for Jimmy G's future. They obviously gave up a lot of picks to get Trey Lance this year, but Jimmy G has been kind of the guy who has brought this team back, who has made them this force in the playoffs, kind of the hot team to pick for a playoff run. There's a lot of implications, not just for this game, but also Jimmy Garoppolo's future in San Francisco and how he plays this weekend.
This is stunning to me. We're 5 minutes into this discussion. Nobody's even mentioned Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, the Cowboys offense, in really any way here. Justin Tinsley, I want to get your pick in this game, but what is on Dak Prescott's arm this weekend?
I mean, this is what the Cowboys are formed for. This is what Jerry Jones waxes poetic about in the preseason. Like, I would give anything to get back to a Super Bowl. The Super Bowl starts here, and everybody understands Dallas in the playoffs is a totally different stress monster here. So this is a huge game.
Look at Tinsley avoiding making a pick. Sarah Spain, give me some numbers here.
I got the 49ers, but I want to say again, you nailed it off the top. It wouldn't be surprising if this Cowboys offense got explosive the way the 49ers have given up the pass this year, but I think the 49ers are going to have the edge here.
Page, who you got?
I got the Cowboys because of Dak Prescott.
Thank you. Somebody brings up the name Prescott. Jun Lee.
I got the Niners. I think that Jimmy G comes through for this team this weekend. He's 2-1 in the playoffs, and I think he builds off of that.
I got the Cowboys, man. Come on now.
All right. That's 50-50. We'll move on. Patriots at Bills. This is the trilogy. You definitely remember the first game, the win in Buffalo. New England won with 3 passes from Mac Jones. Buffalo took the second game. Saturday night in Buffalo, game time temperature 7 degrees. Stadium security might be searching pockets for Viagra. Nobody knows that. June, there's a lot going into this one. What is the X factor to decide this trilogy?
Which version of the Patriots defense shows up? Because at points this season, they've looked like the #1 defense in the NFL. And over the course of this second half of the year, they kind of fell off and have been struggling a lot more. It's going to be really crucial for this team to make sure that they stop Josh Allen. But on top of all of that, they need to make sure that they go out and score first because, we've seen so many different ways that the Patriots have played this year between the way that they played the first game in Buffalo and the way that they played in the second game. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of defensive game plan that Bill Belichick comes out with because we've seen in the past in the postseason, he often saves his bullets for the last postseason games, and so we might see something that we haven't seen all year with this Patriots defense, I think, this weekend in Buffalo.
Justin Tinsley.
I mean, if the Patriots beat the Bills, is it really that much of an upset? Because, look, this is a quintessential Bill Belichick game right here. He's bringing in the #2 scoring defense. Granted, Buffalo is the #1, but in a game like this, Josh Allen is hands down the best quarterback. Stephon Diggs is hands down the best wide receiver. But with the game time temperature of 0 degrees, you go with who's the best manipulator. And there's never been a better manipulator in NFL history than Bill Belichick.
Sarah Spain, you have an X factor in this one?
That works real well in a wind game, but it doesn't actually play out when it comes to cold. It doesn't seem like that actually affects predictions pregame as it does with something like the wind, which is what we saw with them earlier. This is going to be about who eats. And if you look at who I think is going to eat, it's the better quarterback in Josh Allen. It's Stephon Diggs, who absolutely feasts on J.C. Jackson and eats on him way more than anybody else in the league when J.C. Jackson is out there. And then you look at the fact that you've got a rookie quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks are 0-6 outright since 2010 in the postseason. So as much as we like what Mac Jones has shown us, he ain't going to be able to eat. So this is a Bills team that, despite us not being that hot on them because of their win-loss record, actually, according to all of the metrics other than win-loss, are better than they were last year. They just came up short in games that were one score. It was a lot of luck, a lot of fumbles, a lot of stuff like that went the wrong way. So this is a better Bills team, and they're going to show.
You're high on Buffalo. How about you, Woody Page?
Niagara Falls, and so does New England. They're not going to go in there with the same. Hello.
Yeah, I'm with you. I recognize Buffalo, Niagara Falls. There's proximity. I mean.
Yeah, well, Justin's talking about the temperature. Like Buffalo never plays when it's 0 degrees. That's like a normal day they go to the beach, I've been told by a coach, when you're in Buffalo. Really, the difference is going to be that the Bills this time, after going through what they did the last time the two played there, they're going to be tougher. They're going to be stronger. They're going to have a better game plan. They're going to play harder, particularly Josh Allen. And I think you're going to see a situation where the Buffalo Bills not only win, but against a rookie quarterback. And rookie quarterbacks have serious problems when they're in the playoffs that I think the Bills actually run away with this game.
All right, so that's 2 for Buffalo. And Tinsley, just make a pick here, just so I have it on record.
New England.
It might come back to haunt you. Or give you points on Monday. And June Lee, how about you?
I got Buffalo. They scored by They won by an 8-point margin last year. Averaged an 8-point margin win last year, and this year they've been averaging 11-point wins. So I've got the Bills.
One more story here. Big picture question for you guys to chew on this weekend. Who do you trust more to get back to the Super Bowl? Kansas City or Tampa Bay? Kansas City, Pittsburgh is the biggest point spread in wild card history. Tampa's got Philly. There was a relatively tight game in October. That was before Philly kind of became who they are right now. Woody, who do you trust more, Kansas City or Tampa?
The Chiefs. I saw them just a couple of weeks ago playing here in Denver, and I think that they're past that loss to the Bengals. They have developed a better and better team as the season's gone on, particularly defensively. What I've seen out of the Patriots, this is a team that heralded the fact that all their starters were back from last year. Well, guess what? That hasn't really worked to their advantage during the course of the year. That game against the Saints, I didn't see a team that I think is dominant enough to get back to the Super Bowl, and nobody's won back-to-back Super Bowls since the Patriots in 2003, 2004.
June Lee, who do you have more faith in? Who do you have more trust in?
Whenever people start to count out Tom Brady, I think that's when you got to get in on Tom Brady. This is a guy who has faced against odds for his entire career. He's got Leonard Fournette coming back. A lot of people have written off this Bucs team because of everything that's happened with Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin being out for the season. Rob Gronkowski is still playing. He's not playing as well as he did last year, but I think that everything is in the favor of Tom Brady right now to be able to make a run in this postseason.
Who do you trust more, Justin Tinsley?
Since being shut out in Week 15, the Bucs have put up 32, 28, and 41 points respectively. Look, I get it. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford, they're all boxing up a weight class playing against Tom Brady in January. His biggest competition is Aaron Rodgers. And he beat Aaron Rodgers in the NFC title game last year. He had Aaron Rodgers contemplating life all offseason. I'm taking Brady in the Bucs.
More trust in Tampa for you. Sarah, Kansas City or Tampa? Who do you trust more?
Part of those point totals are chasing the Jets to try to get a W there. So I don't know if we're going to go based solely off of that. One team is going in the right direction, and that's the Chiefs, and they have been since struggles early on. The Bucs are going the opposite direction to me. They start out with a great D-line, a great run defense. Without Barrett and David, that has struggled a lot. They've given up over 100 yards to opposing run offenses, 5 of the last 7 games. They're just not as strong. I get June's point. Hard to pick against Brady, but it's the Chiefs for me.
Okay, that's big picture, but this weekend it would be colossal upsets if the Eagles or the Steelers pull it off. So let's play PTI odds makers. Chances the Eagles and the chances the Steelers pull off the upset. June Lee.
Eagles 9%, Steelers 2%.
Justin. This graph here from Sportigo, which tracks black head coaches in the NFL through league history. In a league of 32 teams and 70% black players, with the Texans firing David Cole yesterday, one black head coach. Today, Texans GM Nick Caserio said this: when you rewind here and go back to a year ago, I'd say the organization was in a pretty rough spot. And I think we were where we were then and where we are now. We're in a lot better position. And quite frankly, I think that's because of the leadership and the guidance and the direction that David Culley brought in this football team. Justin, hearing that, and knowing that the team did, in fact, fire Culley, where do you stand with all this today?
I find that quote highly disrespectful, and I'll tell you why. The lawyer Xavier Pope said on Twitter earlier this week, black coaches are the first to get fired. I mean, last to get hired, first to get fired, and rarely get second chances. I don't think anyone's surprised by Culley getting fired, but it's still a raw deal at the end of the day. This is a guy who gave his life to the game of football, and in his first season, they definitely overachieved. They beat the number 1 team in the conference, and he still got fired. Because here's the reality. I mean, Pulley's career in the NFL is so much like other black coaches. They inherit mess, they get it better, and then pass it off to the next white coach. And that's the reality that we're living in. And another reality, you just showed the graphic. The Rooney Rule doesn't work because it doesn't operate on fairness, inclusion, and respect.
Sarah Speen.
Yeah, a lot of people being kind of flippant. Well, this was expected. He was just supposed to be a placeholder. And look, he made off with $22 million. Well, first of all, that's incredible, terrible work by the Texans if you're going to give $22 million to a coach for one season and you already knew you were going to fire him. That's not how this business is supposed to work. But more importantly, while he may not have been let go because of his race can't be ignored. 25 plus years as an assistant, the best job you can get is one that no one wants, where they already knew they were going to fire you. One of 3 black head coaches in the league last season, and one of them doesn't even quote unquote really have a real job because it's just a placeholder. This is part of a larger story the NFL is telling us about what systemic racism and bias, whether unconscious or not, means for the opportunities of coaches of color in a league that's predominantly black. He wasn't fired because he was black, but he's part of that story that we have to keep telling.
Woody Page.
Based on what his boss is saying, that he did an exceptional job while he was there. When Culley took the job a year ago, the first question he was asked was about his quarterback, Watson. He never had an opportunity, any kind of chance to actually coach him and see what the Texans would be. This is totally unfair. He should have gotten the opportunity to coach for at least one more year to see what he could do with at least a team that wasn't the worst in all of football.
Yeah, Culley just wasn't put into a position to succeed. He's not given an opportunity, especially with Deshaun Watson out, to win football games in a way that seems fair for a first-time head coach. You look at Mike Tomlin, he's a guy he's now the only black head coach in the NFL. He's had only winning seasons, and he's won 2 Super Bowls. To place the standard that high for black football coaches to retain their job is an impossible standard, and it's not the same standard that white football coaches are held to.
Justin, if I can ask you to expand then on your view of the Rooney Rule and how you said it's in name only.
Yeah, I mean, it's in name only. You just showed the numbers. I look at things like when we see end racism in the back of the end zone. This makes these type of conversations this much more important because the NFL actions prove to be disingenuous. So here's another thing, and I'll end on this. America's ambitions have never been overpowered by its insecurities, and those insecurities have been generationally crippling. And black leadership in the NFL, as Richard Pryor said 45 years ago, is just but one of those but one of those entry points into a larger conversation that unfortunately is still being had a half a century later.
Yeah, I mean, John Gruden's a perfect example. There are a couple in recent years. Where was the Rooney Rule there? And did we ever really hear about the interviews that went on before they went after the guy that they wanted? It doesn't get employed, and even when it doesn't actually change the minds of the people who are making decisions, who ultimately decide to keep going with the status quo and hire white coaches.
And ultimately, the Rooney Rule just doesn't work, and it's clear and obvious from the stats and from anecdotes. It's about having a mindset change across the league from people in positions of power all the way down to make sure that they're thinking about this stuff from the coaching development tree all the way up to the top.
Yeah. Woody Page.
Tony, they should tear up the Rooney Rule and start all over again. Having covered this league for 50 years, it took forever before they actually accepted African-American quarterbacks. Why is it taking so long when 70% of your players are black that you can't have more black coaches? And I think that they need to have a 3-day seminar and deal totally with this subject and tear up that rule and start all over again.
Thanks for your thoughts today. Justin Sinsley, June Lee, Woody Page, Sarah Spain. Showdown in 2 minutes.
Ooh.